movies from various genres and decades. Stay tuned for this episode. Hello, everyone. We're back again. The MovieNauts, Gary and Bill, and myself, Ron. This is episode 22, and we're talking about our favorite cult movies from 1980s, and this is actually a sequel to an earlier version. So I'm going to start off with one of my absolute favorites of the 80s, Clash of the Titans from 1981. I remember seeing it in the theater, and then I remember HBO used to bombard, and it was one of those few movies that I didn't mind that, it's on 10 times today. Let's see how many I can watch, you know. And it's loosely based on Greek mythology. There's a lot of things that they kind of embellished into it. But if you put that aside, it's just an absolute fun movie. It has that all-star cast. And then, of course, it has Ray Harryhausen's work again, you know. And it's like, that's what kind of made it kind of special, because of that stop motion photography. Nowadays they'll probably use CGI, you know, because it's just easier. But like I said, it's got an all-star cast, including Burgess Meredith, Laurence Olivier, and Harry Hamlin, who plays Perseus. And it's just a wonderful adventure. I mean, it kind of brings you back to your childhood, and watching it recently is like, yeah, it brought me back for sure. I mean, 81, I think I was 15 years old, and loved going to see those types of movies. And they did do two remakes, a remake and a sequel to the remake, and they missed the whole point on those. I mean, they're good. If they would have just named it something else, they would have been good movies on their own. But as a Clash of the Titans remake, I think it fell short, you know. Yeah, and incidentally, the remake came out on my birthday, 2010, April 2nd. So I did not see that in the theater. I only watched them on video. So if you love these kind of fantasy movies rooted in Greek mythology, or any kind of mythology, this one's a really good one to check out.
That movie was really big when it first came out. I'm surprised that it's not better remembered today, honestly. So that thing was that thing was almost as big as Star Wars when it first came out, anyway.
Yeah, it was a blockbuster when it first came out.
At least when it started. Now it's almost forgotten.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Could be better.
It's a shame that it's. Yeah, and hopefully this will help people. You know, if you hadn't seen it, you know, forget about the remake. You know, this one. It also just has the in the moment of when it was made, you know, okay, 1981, you know what, it had that 80s feel. I mean, just like pretty much other decades, but for sure 80s was like, you know, they just had some kind of a magic to them. But that is my first pick.
One other thing about that one, I remember sometime after it, they gave Ray Harryhausen a Lifetime Achievement Award. And Ray Harryhausen's reaction was, was my career over? I thought I was still doing this.
Right. Yeah,
that's the end of someone's career.
Right. or what is it, after they pass, they usually
Yeah, sometimes after they pass, but he was actually somewhat offended. He was getting a lifetime achievement award for that movie. The stop motion in that was a little smoother. I think they did more frames per second. Uh, I think it was like the first movie we did more frames per second than previous movies. Um, just to give it that smoother look.
Yeah, when it was, it made like almost $7 million from about almost 1,200 theaters on the opening weekend, and it was the second behind Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that's saying something.
That's up there. Would have been number one if it wasn't the Raiders.
You know what? If it had sequels, I think it probably would have been better remembered by I would call it the pop culture people.
Could be.
But for us, we always remember those things. All right, Gary, you're up.
Oh, well, it's interesting because this time I'm sort of doing 3 of the 5 movies I picked are connected to other movies that I have covered. And last month I covered the remake of Friday the 13th. So this time around, Friday the 13th, the original from 1980, which the shirt doesn't really match it because the hockey mask doesn't show up until the third Friday the 13th movie.
Right.
And the transition from the first movie to the second movie is so weird in the way they had to go with it. But it was one of the original slasher movies, or at least one of the original that started the whole movement of slasher movies that was so big in the 80s. And that makes it a very important movie, I think. The pacing's a little slow to begin with, but once it gets going, I mean, it established a lot of the things that you sort of look for in slasher movies. It established a lot of the weird kills and
Right.
people stumbling across the bodies all the bodies at the end and that kind of thing. It kind of set and the whole you have sex, you get killed. It
Right.
put that one in there too, and they kind of established a lot of that. I mean, Halloween did some, but I think Friday the 13th is sort of more representative of the slasher genre because I think most of them copied it more than they copied Halloween, even though it kind of copied Halloween. And it was not huge at the box office, but once it got out onto home video and stuff, it got much more respected, I guess. And it's cheesy, but it was 1980, and
Right.
you have to respect it for what it did. I happen to be a huge fan of the entire run of Friday the 13th movies, so I'm a little biased on it, but it's a good movie.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember when I first watched it, I was like, it was almost kind of like a murder mystery somewhat, because I'd seen some of those sequels before I had seen the first one. So it was a little different, but it was still good though. I liked it. It had a good. I think it might have had more plot than some of the later ones, actually.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I remember
there's a little bit of a Psycho sort of thing going on.
With the music.
Right.
Well, the music, yes. The music is definitely inspired by Psycho, but if you think about it, the story actually has some serious connections to Psycho.
Yeah.
I agree.
I remember first seeing that on HBO. My neighbors, they had HBO, and my friend, he invited me over and we watched it. And then actually we did it a couple times, and then he got his sisters to watch it. And so we were hiding behind the couch. So when certain jump scares happened, we jumped out, especially at the end. That jump scare.
Oh, that's funny.
We jump, and they scream so loud, and they go to him, Jeff, I'm telling Mom, and he couldn't stop laughing because it was funny. But I didn't start watching the series in the movie theater until the third.
I think it was about the 5th or 6th one that I first saw in the theater. I had been just watching them on videotape on VHS, folks. There used to be this cool thing called VHS.
I don't think I ever saw any of them in the theater. Actually, I had to used to. We would not only rent the video from a store. We would rent the VCR from the store. This is how far back I go to watching some of the Friday the 13th movies. And you had to sign off so many pieces of papers, like signing your arm and your leg, just to get the VCR.
Oh, I know. Like this thick contract.
Yeah. As I say, what was interesting about seeing them in the theater was, you know, that everybody talks about Rocky Horror Picture Show and the audience participation, but when you would see the scenes, when you knew something was going to happen, you would just hear echoing around the theater.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's my first
very
one.
good series.
Excellent series.
All right, so I guess I'm up. I'm going a little off script. I have I have a number of comedies in this one, in this episode, and I'm starting with one that is totally forgotten. I don't think anybody has seen this anymore, but it was a really good movie, Fatso, in 1980. It starred Dom DeLuise with his battles with weight, and it wasn't documentary, but it was, a story. It's a comedy. But it also had, the nice thing about the 80s was you had comedies that could actually have meaning behind them, could have, some pulling some heartstrings and some scenes and things like that. So it's a pretty good movie. They do some weight jokes, of course. It's got a great cast. Not only Dom DeLuise, and this is before Dom DeLuise was really big, actually, but he still plays this. But his sister is played by Mrs. Mel Brooks, Anne Bancroft, and he has a brother that he lives with, who's played by Ron Carey, who was Levitt in Barney Miller. So he's in there. It's also, I believe, co-written by one of the Mel Brooks writers too, Rudy DeLuca. But anyway, it was really good. It has some really funny scenes. And Bancroft, and they're supposed to be an Italian family, so maybe I identify with this one a little more than most, because we're about eating. I'm half Italian. I know camp doesn't sound like Italian, but my mom was the Italian side, and Bancroft really goes overboard on the angry Italian mother, her figure in there. And there's this one scene, I almost fell off the couch. I laughed so hard. So Tom DeLuise was supposed to go get a cake for one of his nephews. And he comes back with the cake, and there's a slice missing out of the cake. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And Bancroft is her kid. She's, that's his sister. He's like, "What are you doing? Eating the cake? You gotta go ahead and get another cake." He says, "You can't give this cake to him. Go out and get another cake." And he's like, he goes to leave, and he's stopped. He turns back and goes, "What are you gonna do with that cake?" And she just goes, "I'll tell you what I'm gonna do with this cake." Smashes the cake all over the place. Oh my God, I almost died. But they do a lot of things like that. People who have trouble watching what they eat. He joins a group that's supposed to help them, and there are other heavy people, and you're supposed to call them when you're about to go on a binge, and he calls them, and of course they come over. They have chains around the ice blocks and everything, and they just join him in this binge and tear the chains off of the refrigerator and get into this huge eating binge. And I don't know, it's kind of funny for its time, but it also has some serious scenes where it talks about, in the end, he's kind of like, you guys have to love me for who I am, despite, if I have any weight issues. So it does have those moments in it as well. But I thought it was a pretty good. I hadn't seen it in years and years and years, but I remembered it from a long time ago. So I finally streamed it the other day, and I thought it still held up. It's definitely dated to the 80s. But it's one of those comedies that also has meaning to it, which, we kind of lost in the 90s and 2000s, I think, to some degree anyway. But I thought it was a good movie. It's Fatso with Dom DeLuise.
I vaguely remember there was a lot of those
on television at some point.
Oh, I think I may have seen it in the theaters because my dad took us to the movies a lot, and it would be sometimes it'll be our choice, and then it comes around for his choice when me and my brother, all three of us, go to the movies. But when we go separately, he goes, "Okay, you can pick your movie," and then my brother can pick his, And then when we went together, he picked the movie, and he He actually picked some pretty good ones, and so
Yeah, I don't think it has much of a budget. It's mostly just, in apartments and houses, doing the dialogue and everything. But I thought it was pretty good. Dom DeLuise is cutting bread. He's supposed to be on a diet for his brother, and he says, "Here, do you want bread?" And his brother, brother's acted by Ron Carey, and he says, "I don't like bread. You like bread. Why are you cutting the bread?" Just a lot of stuff like that. That's and you feel bad for him, but So that's my first one.
That's a good one. All right. My second one is kind of a long title. The Perils of Gwendolyn in the Land of the Yik Yak. It's from 1984. It's a French softcore action comedy with a lot of bondage moments in it, and it has Tawny Kitaen. So anyone out there that wants to see her in the prime and in bondage situations, this is the one. It's kind of
That's pretty White Snake there, isn't it? 84.
Yeah. I tell people basically it's like just imagine a more campy Indiana Jones. It played obviously on Cinemax, or as we used to call it, Skinemax, late at night, and it's fun and it's funny. It's just so yeah, it just feels like you're watching like a very campy, because they got the guy that looks kind of like an Indiana Jones character, and he has to go rescue Gwendolyn, and just then they get into the situations. This is probably not one to show your kids, just because there is some softcore elements to it and bondage, unless you are going to spend the time to explain it to your kids. Tell them, wait till you're 18, then you can watch it if you want. It's not for young kids, but it's a fun movie, and for the it looks like it's taking place in like the 30s, but the outfits that Tawny Kitaen was wearing did not look like it was from the 30s. It looks like definite 80s. Especially when it got down to some of the bondage scenes, and then usually women in the 30s always wore their hair up, and she has it down a lot. But if you're looking for a fun movie to watch, this really is a good one. And I think like 2 or 3 years ago it came out on Blu-ray. I don't know if it's still in print or not, but if you want, from 1984, right in the middle of the decade, and it just has, like I was saying in the first Clash of the Titans, it had that 80s vibe going to it. So that is my number 2 movie.
Yeah, 1930s movies where they're still wearing 80s clothes. That's definitely 80s. That was 80s all over.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I think it might have.
Go ahead.
I think it might have also been maybe partially inspired by that Tarzan movie with Daryl Hannah. Wasn't that like 80, 81? I think it was 81, somewhere in there. Might have been some influence in there as well.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
And you could totally tell that it was a foreign film to it, vibe to it, but it was all in English, no subtitles or anything. I'm sure it used to be on YouTube, and it's not on any streaming site. It's just one of those movies. I would think it would be on Max, maybe, because how it had a connection to Cinemax at one time.
Yeah, I think they're owned by the same parent company even today.
Yeah, so
at least they used to be. I think they still are.
I just look it up and see if it's out there. You know, I know for sure it wasn't on YouTube. Uh, Fun movie. All right, back to you, Gary.
So I'm going to go to 1985 and another movie which I looked on my master list and I covered the remake of it, but I haven't covered the original, which is the original Fright Night. Um, which, number one, you got Roddy McDowell as Peter Vincent, he's awesome. Chris Sarandon does a great job of the vampire. And, the whole movie, my only complaint is that it gets a little too silly and sort of over the top, almost childish at times.
Right.
But they do really capture a lot of comedy along with plenty of real frights. It's a fun movie. I don't think it holds up incredibly well today, but it is still very fun.
Oh yeah. That I
Yeah,
think
that's
was
one
another
finally.
one. I saw that in the theater. My dad took me to that one.
That's another one I finally caught just a few years ago. But yeah, it was a pretty good vampire flick.
Yeah.
I like that Peter Vincent. Uh, Peter Cushing, Vincent Price.
Yeah.
Right,
I had a
right
feeling too
together.
they were meshing some classic
Yeah.
horror movie names in there.
Oh yeah. That was a good. That was a cool one. It was like a movie in a movie in a way because Vincent Peter Vincent had his little late
Horror
night
hosting show.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Peter
and
Vincent,
then
Vampire Hunter.
yeah, and then when it came down to it, when he had to get up against the vampires, he was chicken.
Yep. Well, come on. He didn't actually think there were vampires.
Right, right. All right,
Thank
Bill.
you. I'm up. All right.
Yep.
So my second one is the last one that's only straight up comedy. I have some other horror comedies coming up later. But it has another Mel Brooks collection. We talked about it before. We mentioned it anyway before. Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1. But honestly, this was one of my favorites of Mel Brooks, and it doesn't get enough love. Me and my friends they actually recorded this movie on audio tape, and we used to sit on one of my friend's stoops and just listen to it while playing Uno or board games and things like that on my friend's stoop. I know every line to this movie.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, we could act it out. There's so many good lines. So it's kind of sketch. I don't know if anybody hasn't seen it. It starts off with the caveman. He does a couple of jokes with cavemen. Then he does the longest one is the Roman Empire. Oh, he does a couple of Moses things really quickly in there too. One of my favorite lines: the 15, oops, 10 commandments. Drops one of the tablets. And then he goes to the Roman Empire, and then he does the Spanish Inquisition, and then he finishes up with the French Revolution. And it has Mel Brooks' all-time most famous line, "It's good to be the king," which has been used everywhere. It became a Tom Petty song. It's used in commercials for different things. It's been everywhere. It's peak Mel Brooks. He was really on a big run in the early 70s, but he was still going very strong in the early 80s, and he was still pretty much at his peak. When I first started college, one of my professors even just taught off of this film, and it was like me and maybe 4 or 5 other students who were just dying, and everybody else looking at us like, "What's he talking about?" With every reference. It's mostly historically accurate.
Mostly a story.
Mostly. With a lot of humor. It is hilarious. Might not be one for the kids to watch. A lot of dirty jokes and dirty humor, but definitely still worth a watch if you're a Mel Brooks fan.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, that used to be on heavy rotation on HBO.
That was another one, yes. That was on heavy rotation on HBO. That one in Clash of the Titans, I think, was like every other movie from there.
Sounded like it. Yeah.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
I like the one scene with Gregory Hines. His tongue
Yeah.
comes out, and it's
He
like
is a
like
eunuch.
tender.
He is a eunuch. He
Yeah,
is dead.
and Madeline Kahn. Oh, she was
Madeline Kahn, uh, the royal orgy. No, 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 no. Yes, I told you I know every line of this thing. I could act it out. Me and my friends actually used to act it out sometimes. Most of it. Uh, it was. I've probably seen it more times than almost any other movie, except maybe King Kong versus Godzilla. Um, so many lines in that one that are quotable. Very quotable movie. There's a lot of a huge cast in there too. A lot of bit parts, big names doing bit parts like B. Arthur has a small part in there. Hugh Hefner has a cameo. Ron Carey is back again, actually, as Swiftus, his agent. You die at the palace, you really die at the palace. Dom DeLuise is back as Caesar. Who else is in there? There's Harvey Korman, of course, is in the French Revolution. So many people, so many
yeah.
familiar faces too that you won't remember the names, but you know the faces too. Huge, huge movie. It's my latest invention. I call it the centerfold. It was Hugh Hefner, and those are supposedly real. Some of the real Playboy bunnies in that scene too. Well, can't even call it a scene; it's a cameo. Blink your eyes and you'll miss it. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Anyway,
All right.
don't get me started. I'll start acting out that movie. Anyway, next.
All right, my third movie is The Mutilator, which was also known as Fall Break. And as you can tell, it was a slasher set in Fall Break. And they go to this nice little beach house, and the kids start being killed off one by one, and it was killed by one of the fathers. And there was some gruesome. They had the cover has that meat hook, and they do use that right in the eye. And I mean, at the time that this came out, it says 85. It was kind of going towards the tail end of the original slashers. You had obviously the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street ones continuing on, but a lot of these like one-off ones, it was like towards the end of the 80s one-offs, and bad acting, but it's fun. The kills are fun, and
With a slasher movie, a lot of times that's all you need.
yeah. And I remember I originally rented it on VHS, and I had forgotten about it for many years until when it got posted, it was coming out on Blu-ray, and I was like, going, "Oh my God, I need to get that movie." I mean, it's not the greatest slasher, but it just had that 80s feel to it, and it had some music in it that just kind of just didn't fit a slasher vibe. It was too. It sounded like it could be more for like a 80s fall break comedy, that kind of music, And but it's a good. It's good. I mean, and it's not as known. It's one of the lesser known ones out there. I have. I don't think I've ever seen it mentioned on YouTube. So that's my number 3.
Just back around to me. Now, this one isn't one I've covered a related movie before, but this one does actually have a remake that's really good. But I'm looking at 1986's The Hitcher with Rutger Hauer, who gets picked up as a hitchhiker, and he's this absolutely psychotic, nearly unstoppable killing machine, and he just torments this guy, and kills lots of people in the process. And um, it's a very tense movie, and it's in some ways, I mean, yeah, it's sort of almost a slasher movie in some ways, but it's also almost a psychological horror because of just the way he's torturing this kid and his girlfriend, and um, it's a really good movie though. And it was largely forgotten, and then I think it sort of became cult status when it hit like HBO or something. But it's a good movie.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, the dog does too. Yeah, it was a good movie. Yeah, HBO, another heavy rotation on HBO, and well, you just had an overall sense of dread when Roger Howell's character was around, and he had that little smirk to him,
Oh yeah.
like he had an inside joke or something like that.
Yeah.
It just had that smirk, and it's like, oh God, I don't want to run into this guy. For the longest time, I was always looking when I'm driving. I'm looking on the side of the road for people that look like him, and it's like going, I'm definitely not picking you up. Hell no, hell no. But yeah, that's a classic.
All right. So I'm up again.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So my third one is the one serious movie I have here, sort of, although some people do like to laugh at it. Godzilla 1985, which ironically came out in 1984 in Japan. It's the return of Godzilla with the Japanese title. So this is the very first of the Heisei series. That's the second series after Showa. It's a direct sequel to the original Godzilla King of the Monsters, if you're looking for the lineage of Godzilla movies anyway.
Right.
And they bring back Raymond Burr as the same character that he was in King of the Monsters, as newspaper reporter Steve Martin. I always thought they should put Steve Martin in a Godzilla movie as a newspaper reporter named Raymond Burr.
That
But
would be
anyway, that's just me. That would be great.
That would
Anyway,
be.
that would be awesome. Even a cameo. Anyway, sorry. It's not bad. They spent a whole bunch of money on a mechanical head for Godzilla so he could curl his lip and have a little bit more animation to the face. So that made it the heaviest suit of all time, if you're wondering about things like that. It was the first one that I saw in the theater. I dragged my parents to it. And it was me, my two parents, and maybe three other people in the theater. And I think it was gone in about 2 weeks. I don't think it lasted a month in the theater at all.
No.
So, but it's really a good movie. I think it's worth watching if you like the Heisei series. My understanding is the millennial generation is big on the Heisei series. So if you have not seen this, you're in the millennial generation, you should see this one. The first in the series. I thought it was really good. It was at one time it was one of my favorites. They have this secret weapon that comes out and just shoots missiles at Godzilla like a machine gun. So he's fighting that thing. It has some Cold War stuff where the Russians want to nuke Godzilla to destroy him, and the U.S. is trying to stop him, and they think that's going to cause more damage than good. So anyway, it's got a lot of stuff like that in there. Great movie. So it's very 80s because of that, the Cold War stuff. But definitely a good Godzilla movie. You like the Godzilla movie, you like the kaiju. Definitely one worth checking out if you haven't seen it.
I agree. I think I did see that one in theaters. I thought it was kind of cool that they brought back the Raymond Burr character.
It was. I thought they did really well with that.
Yeah. All right. My next two are music related. One's a comedy. So the next one up is This is Spinal Tap. This is
that was on my short list, by the way.
That is like, oh my God. This was another one I saw in the theaters, and it was, I think there was maybe four people in the theater. I could find. You know, I didn't want to be way up front. I got right in the center, you know, right in the center of the theater, in the center of the screen, and it was great. I mean, I immediately afterward, this was in a shopping mall, I immediately went down the other end of the mall to the record store to see if they had the soundtrack. And I got that on cassette. So it's like I played that thing to death.
Smell the glove.
Smell the glove, yeah. Just there's like
Sun never sweats.
It's just like your History of the World Part One. It just has all these one-liners, you know. I love when he's playing that nice little piano ballad, and then he goes, oh, "What's the name of this?" Something to the degree of, "Oh, Rick, my love pump."
Yeah.
I'm like going, I mean, that's classic. I mean,
what
it
was just funny, Ron? It was funny is I saw it in the theater, and it was not an empty theater. It wasn't completely full. But what's interesting about that movie, some people get it, and some people absolutely do not. And when it was in a theater with a lot of people in it, you could tell because something funny would happen, and maybe half of us would laugh, and the other half were just sitting there like, "What?"
Yeah, like
crazy.
when
in
that concert hall, I think it was in Cincinnati, where they keep on going around in circles underneath the stage.
Oh yeah.
Rock and roll, rock and roll,
rock and roll. Yeah,
at the same place. Yeah.
Or what is it? Derek Smalls, when they had those little pods, and
the cocoon, and he gets stuck in it.
He's stuck in it, and then when he finally comes out and everybody's back in, and tries to get back in. And of course, the classic Stonehenge.
There are so many great gags in there.
I mean, this is something, if you love hard rock or rock and roll in general, this has so many nods to different things, and I do believe a lot of these things were based on actual events.
Definitely.
You know,
I mean,
I know the one where the wireless units picking up air traffic control. I know happened to the Grateful Dead. I know that, and it probably happened to other bands too. But I know it happened to the Grateful Dead once. You know, and what's cool about that movie too, to me, is that if you've seen enough rock documentaries, it looks like one. It feels like one. I mean, it's such a good mockumentary, you know.
Yeah, it's like
I was going to say, if you watch a couple of those rock documentaries, you can see you can almost pick up. I think they stole this one from that one, and they might have stole this one from that one, and or made a joke about something that's referenced in one of these other ones.
And when we talked about people who get it and people who don't, one of my friends had another friend who hated that movie, and he was like, "Why do you hate it?" He's like, "Well, why would they make a movie about such a lame band?" And he's like, "Dude, it's not a real band." Well, they played concerts, haven't they? Well, yeah. Well, then it's a real band. Why would anybody make a movie of such a lame band?
Right.
So
how many people I like that everybody, and I like how they actually played and sang.
Oh, and wrote the music.
They didn't have, they wrote. I mean, they did it themselves. They didn't have people doing it for them or lip syncing to.
And they later on they have done several tours as a band.
They did. They started. I heard that they were not actually playing the notes in the movie, but they had people showing them how to play them, and then they actually learned the instruments shortly after the movie and started coming out with their own albums. Their first album was "Break Like the Wind." Their first actual real album.
Break Like the Wind. Yeah. And they're doing another one.
Yeah, it's coming out.
Yeah, I have heard that.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's soon.
And the funny thing is, it's like they're calling it the sequel, but there was another sequel, Spinal Tap Returns or something like that, or The Return of Spinal Tap. And that had some great moments too. A lot of people just sort of ignore that movie for some reason, and I'm not sure why. But I thought that one was almost as good as the first one.
Right. Yeah.
I think I would say I think my favorite part of the second one, my most memorable bit on there was Derek Smalls they were asking what he did in the time when the band wasn't together, and he's like, yeah, I was going out on tour doing sound for a Christian metal festival called Monsters of Jesus. And I was like, Monsters of Jesus, that's hilarious.
Monsters of Jesus. Yeah, it's a great movie. I mean,
Is that the one where Rob Reiner he was relegated to an office like in the hallway next to a
Yeah, I
next to a
believe
drinking
so. Yeah,
fountain?
yeah.
Okay, I think I did see that on VH1
And I
uh,
think it was Derek
quite a few years
Smalls
ago.
who had also been working. One of the guys had been working for their dad's company. They sanitized telephone receivers. They go into people's houses and take the receiver apart, spray some stuff in it, put it back together.
That's hilarious.
oh
And I
man,
have to wonder how many people watching the video now are going to be today years old when they realize that the lead singer of Spinal Tap was Lenny on Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
yeah,
Took me forever to realize that. And they actually have an episode, Lenny and the Squig Tones, where he had a band. He had a band on the show.
yeah, it's great, great.
Well, and they also did another one. They did a different kind of one called what was it? It was The Mighty Wind, which was they did it like a folk act or a bunch of folk acts going out on tour, and it was I never saw it, but from the descriptions, it really sounded like Spinal Tap gone folk, you know?
Yeah,
Well, there is a movie. Some people think that the Spinal Tap thing was actually inspired by an Eric Idle movie called The Ruddles. All You Need Is
I remember the
Cash.
Ruddles.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good movie too. One that I might have to cover at some point.
not nearly Spinal Tap good though.
Yeah.
It has its moments though.
It does have
still
its
has
moments.
maybe not quite Spinal Tap, but and for anyone who hasn't seen Spinal Tap, definitely stay for the credits because of the drummer.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking. I forgot about that scene last time I watched it. I don't know how I forgot, but I forgot about it. And oh my god, I almost died.
And I love when Nigel Tufner he leaves, and then the three of them start doing jazz Odyssey.
Yes.
And I see in the audience the guy. Ooh. That was hilarious.
And don't forget, these go to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most famous.
One of my favorites is when he's showing the guy, showing him the guitar, and he's like, "No, don't touch it. You can't touch it. In fact, I should have never shown it to you."
Don't even look at it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't even look at it.
Don't even look at it. At the Virginia Beach Amphitheater for a while, they took it down now, but they had like a banner above where you buy the tickets, and they had knobs that go to 11.
Okay.
Giant knobs.
Okay, so here's one. And I don't know if they still have this, but I do know, okay, in one of the places they play on the Spinal Tap tour, it says it's Shank Hall, Milwaukee. There was no Shank Hall, Milwaukee, but this dude opened up a place, named it Shank Hall. And when I was there, I went there, I don't know, it was probably 20 years ago, I saw Fish there, and not the band Fish PH, but the lead singer from Marillion. Anyway, hanging above the stage, if you get up close enough, you can see they have the small small Stonehenge hanging above the
That's
stage.
hilarious.
Yeah, that was one thing, Stonehenge. What was it? Stonehenge was being something about being trampled over by dwarfs.
Yes. Exactly.
An 18-inch Stonehenge was about to be trampled by dwarfs. That was hilarious.
And the thing is this, is they did it with deadpan delivery. They weren't being silly.
They sold it.
And
I think that's one reason why I would say that movie is better than the Ruddles one. The Ruddles one seems a little bit like they're trying too hard sometimes, and the satire is a little too in your face. Whereas with Spinal Tap, it seems believable almost.
Right.
it really does play like a real documentary.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
they're not actually acting or anything. I don't even
No,
know if they had an actual script, if they just had like an outline,
they
get
did
the
a lot of
scene to
improv.
go here. Yeah, I think they had to
Yeah,
for that one.
That's great.
yeah, that's a
That's
good one.
my number four.
Okay, brings us back around to me. And now this one, I did cover a sequel to last time around. I'm looking at 1987's original Hellraiser movie. Um, that movie, it is at the time, I think it was probably one of the darkest, just gloomiest movies ever. Because I don't remember any as dark as that when it first came out. I described it after watching it the first time. I said it's almost like they take a big steel drum and just put it over your head. You know, it's
Yeah.
just it's so I don't know. The first time I saw it, I remember I said, "This is a great movie. I never want to see it again," um, because it was just such a. So now I've seen it, quite a few times since then, and I've seen it a few years ago, and it doesn't hold up as well now, but it was pretty amazing for the time. Now at the time I remember even thinking that a lot of the special effects looked really good. Now you look at it and go, God, they didn't have much of a budget, did they?
Right. Yeah, good one. That's it. I have the box set that has the first three. Uh, I guess they're calling that the trilogy or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but the one I actually liked, and I don't think it was well received, is the one where it's in space and the giant cube
I haven't
is
seen that one.
I think it's like a space station,
Uh,
and it goes through the history of Pinhead and the human that became Pinhead and everything. And I thought it was a good movie. I mean, kind of went deeper into the mythology of, Hellraiser. And then a lot of the other sequels, I mean, some of them, they look like they were just, the name Hellraiser were just stuck on them because they couldn't figure out to end the story. So it was like they go, oh, okay, well, let's get Hellraiser in here. Let's get Pinhead. Maybe he'll rough some people up. Take them to hell. But yeah, that's a good one. All right, Bill.
that was my
All right.
fourth.
So my last two are horror comedies, so they mesh a little bit together. The first one, and actually they have something else in common too that I should mention before I say the titles. I wanted to see these in the theater, and nobody would take me. I wasn't old enough to drive yet, so feel sorry for me. But I did see them eventually. The first one, Transylvania 65000, 1985. Uh, Jeff Goldblum and Ed Beagley Jr. star. There's a lot of pop-ups by a lot of famous people in there as well. They play two reporters who are supposed to find the real Frankenstein's monster out there in Transylvania. They don't find that, but they do uncover some mysterious, crazy things that are happening in the town. There's a young Michael Richards who would later be Kramer, plays one of the people in the hotel that they stay at. Norman Sell from Three's Company, he was the first landlord, is the supervisor of the newspaper that sends him out there. He only has a beginning scene. I think Gina
Right.
Davis pops up in there somewhere, maybe.
Yeah,
Anyway,
the sexy
yeah, so
vampire.
yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of good characters in there. Some of the comedy doesn't always work, but it's still not bad. It's kind of fun. Uh, you could waste an hour and a half doing worse things than this and watch
Yep.
Transylvania 65000. Uh, and also the telephone rings in the tune of Pennsylvania 65000, which, if you own a fedora like that, you have to know that was Glenn Miller Orchestra. Pennsylvania. Well, anyway, anyway, it's a decent little comedy film from the 80s. Definitely Definitely dated in the 80s again with some of the cheesy stuff. But it's a fun little movie. Love Jeff Goldblum too. He's a big cult actor. Shows up in a lot of weird things.
Yeah. I think this was another one that the heavy rotation on HBO.
It might have, yeah, especially right around Halloween, I imagine.
Or Cinemax, one of the two.
One of those.
I remember because I saw him on cable, so I would have loved to have seen it in the theaters, but
I wanted to. I couldn't get anybody to take.
now you can get in a time machine and go back and watch it.
I know, right? Well, I have seen it now several times.
Yeah. Oh,
But it's a fun thing.
All right, for my last choice is another thing rooted in music. It's called Crossroads. It's from 1986, and it's Ralph Macchio, and it's inspired by the legend of Robert Johnson, the blues player. And it has a lot of great music in it. And when he goes to battle Steve Vai, I mean, it doesn't, to me, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't even know who Steve Vai was, and now that I look back at it, it's like going, no, there's no way he's going to beat Steve Vai. Not many people can beat Steve Vai. I mean, but it was just I like that little mythology. It had a supernatural element to it, but it was more rooted in drama and this was like I said, this is one I watched in the theaters. I think I went to it alone because in '86 I was 20, so that's when I started going off and watching movies by myself. Not waiting to go with my dad. I mean, we still go, but it was just more like, now I want to branch out. I like music, and I was really into it. And then the music was done by Ry Cooder, and it's pretty cool that it's like the battling for the Devil's guitar player than Ralph Macchio, and just the way how he was doing the blues, but then he just couldn't, just for some reason, it wasn't impressive enough. But then when he did that little classical music part on the guitar, and it's like you watch Steve Vai like going, what? And he tried to do it, and that there's no way that was him making a mistake. He had to purposely and it's like, and then when he just threw down the guitar and just walked off the stage, it was a great movie. I mean, again, if you like music and you like stuff that's kind of rooted in kind of like a little bit of a mythology of blues music, this is a really good one to watch. And it does hold up, with the the Steve Vai versus Ralph Macchio part, sort of. But it's like, but the rest of it, I mean, it could have been made today. I mean, it just has that timeless feel to it.
I'd be very much interested in seeing that one. Actually, I haven't seen that.
I saw that one in the theater, also I've seen it fairly recently, within a couple of years, and it does still hold up. But a couple comments I wanted to make about it. First, don't know if you ever noticed, the person who plays Robert Johnson, you don't see him much in there, is Tim Russ, who plays Tuvok on Star Trek Voyager.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So there's
Tim Russ was played Robert Johnson in there. And then the other point I wanted to make, which I was surprised you didn't mention, Ron, if you think about it, the movie's basically Karate Kid, because he hooks up with this older guy who is a master of the thing, and he learns from him. And, it's kind of basically Karate Kid, but with guitars. So,
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. So it could have been like in a multiverse. This is Karate Kid and
yeah, yeah,
I mean, and I think it was about a few years after Karate Kid because
yeah, yeah, it was.
You said
yeah,
85. Yeah, a couple,
yeah,
about a year or two.
Yeah, it was right around Karate Kid, but yeah, just after it. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then of course he's got that New York, trying to do that New York accent.
Oh,
It
yeah.
it kind of works, and trying to do the walk, the little strut and everything. But other than that, it's a great story. Music is great, um,
Yeah.
and I can't. I mean, people that love that music really should check it out if they haven't already. And if you've already seen it, go watch it again because it's on YouTube.
And if you don't mind me throwing out a self promotion there, I wrote an article on Robert Johnson for Wormwood Chronicles, Mike Corn's Wormwood Chronicles. You should
Oh, nice.
check that out so you'd know the backstory of Robert Johnson and how he maybe or maybe not sold his soul to the devil to become a better guitar player.
Yeah.
Perhaps he did, perhaps he didn't. On Highway 61.
Uh-huh. At the crossroads.
That is the crossroads. That's right.
Yep.
Revisited from Dylan, right? So many artists reference it. It's just ridiculous. It's I cover all that in the article.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I like like I said, I like the mythology of and it's like it's supernatural without kind of being put right in your face, and it's haunting in a way, but with not being scary haunting, but it's just like, you make a deal with the devil. You got to be careful on how you talk with the devil, because he might think that you're trying to make a deal. And so, yeah, that is my final movie.
Okay, well, brings us back around to me. And for my final movie, I'm going to go up to 1988. And I'm going to hit a full moon film. Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama.
Oh my God, I remember that.
which is a total classic. I just watched it again a few weeks ago, and it is just a total classic. I would say that, in my opinion, that might be the best performance Linnea Quigley ever did. I mean, she's really good in that movie. And the premise is these the sororities doing an initiation hazing, and in the meantime, these typical like Porky's kind of, but Porky's meets Nerds kind of guys break into the house to see some naked girls, and they get caught. And so the head of the sorority had this plan that they were going to make them break into this bowling alley and steal a bowling trophy. Well, she decides that the punishment for these guys is they have to go with. And one of the bowling trophies gets broken open, and there's a malevolent imp that's been trapped inside there, and now it's free and starts granting them wishes. But like you said, speak carefully to the devil. Don't make a wish with the imp, because it's going to turn on you 100%.
Right.
And it's a really fun movie. It still holds up pretty well. It's low budget, it's campy, and it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, I remember seeing that in the video store. So I think I went through in the '80s. I watched almost all of the full moon, and I couldn't. And then how at the end of the movie they would have like previews of other things to come, and I'm like, I would write down the titles, whatever they were. So so it went back to the video store, and if one video store didn't have it, I just had like four video stores I used to go to in my hometown, and anywhere Blockbuster never had it at that time. So I had to go to a lot of the mom and pop ones, which I always thought those were superior to Blockbuster, because you got some cool titles at these places. I mean, it's like these mom and pops would just take a chance on these weird titles. It's like O-Rama. You know, it's like it was, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, for those of us who remember the 80s, Blockbuster was the worst place for cult movies. They only had like your, as the name says, blockbusters. You know, a lot of the other smaller video stores were always the better ones.
Blockbuster.
Oh yeah.
I hated
And,
500,
Blockbuster.
500 is the same title.
I went to a couple of them, and then it's like my partner at the time, she went to the new releases, and I made a beeline for the horror. You know, that was my place I went to it. I think at the one store, I think I saw every single one of them, and I go, we got to go find another Blockbuster. What do you mean? I said, well, I watched all the horror movies that they had here. And she says, oh, okay. You know, so we had to go to the neighboring city to. So yeah, I never worked at a Blockbuster, but I worked at it was a small chain in Southern California called 2020 Video, and I worked at two of their locations. And what was cool is you got a special card and you can go to any one of the other places. So I went out to it was Studio City, California, and that's where I rented Sorority Babes and the Slime Bowl around. They had those kind of campy horror, you know, and it had a bunch of them. But yeah, that's a good title. I completely forgot about that one.
And we had smaller video. I don't know if it was mom and pop, smaller chains, but Real Entertainment used to have 5 movies for $5 if you rented it on a Wednesday. And it just so happened I used to work at a grocery store and had Wednesdays off because I'd have to work weekends. So it was perfect for me.
Well, when I was younger, when I finally got my own VCR and everything, every Friday night I'd rent 4 movies, watch it to almost like 3 or 4 in the morning. You know, I got either like pizza or Chinese food. Took them back when the store opened at 10. Got 4 more, so I basically watched 8 a week. And I think that's where I got my love of watching movies. It's just really, you know, going. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
All right. So my final movie, I have the last movie, actually not too far removed from Gary's last movie, is Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Just watched that recently too.
Did you?
Yes.
That's a fun movie. And you know, it makes a really good double feature with Transylvania 65000, in my opinion. Usually when I watch one, I watch the other back to back. I think there's 2 things that are similar about my movie and Gary's last movie, and I'm not going to tell you what those are. I think you can figure it out. So Elvira is kicked off her show. It's canceled, and she inherits a large mansion in a really right-wing conservative Christian town and has to turn the town upside down. That's your plot. And everybody's pretty much against her except for a small group of teenage boys. Because, you know, why not?
2 reasons.
What's that?
2 reasons.
2 reasons. That's right. There's 2 reasons. That's right. Yeah, Elvira, the girl with the biggest ratings, as she used to say.
Yeah.
It's a fun horror movie, though. She finds a Book of the Dead. She has this punk rock poodle as her mascot. Lots of fun little things go on. She tries to revamp this theater so she can do a show so she can make money too, and you know, turn this town upside down. It's a really fun horror movie, horror / comedy. You know, it's light on the horror. You know, some of the comedy works and some of it doesn't, just like Transylvania 65000. Again, it makes a really good double feature with that one. I think it's fun. I love Elvira. I'd see her in almost anything. Another movie that I begged my parents to take me to see, and they totally refused. Like, there's no way you're going to see that. So parents, don't stop your kids from watching the movies they want to see, because you're just going to make it even more special when they finally see it. It's really what that's going to work out.
Right. They're going to want to see it more.
That's how that usually plays out.
And it doesn't matter what the quality is. You're still going to want to see it more. It's like, no, you can't see it. Yes, I'm going to see it.
That's right.
I will see it
later.
Even if it's the most awful movie on the planet. I will see it because you told me not.
And that makes it the best movie on the planet.
Yes. All right. Well, yeah, that I remember that one. Kind of wish that she made more for those.
She did make another one a couple of years ago, actually. It's not as good as that one. Not that that one was really all that good to begin with either. But I have sat through that one too. Yes, I'm an Elvira fan. So I love the whole horror movie host idea, the whole concept. And she was one of the most famous ones, at least of that era, especially of the 80s.
Yes.
So, I'll see her in anything.
All right. Well, we've got another one in the bag. 15 amazing movies for everybody to watch. Most of them you're going to probably have to purchase because, or maybe find a place online that rents these kind of special movies, because they're just not these the offbeat things that the titles that no one, a lot of people would be like going, oh, I don't know that one, but we'd like to know what your favorite 5 80s cult classics are, because maybe there's something on your list that we missed completely, or we hadn't seen in a very long time. Be cool to see what you guys have for us. Might inspire us to go look for them. So thank you again, Bill and Gary. And see you again next month. Thank you very much for watching this episode. And stay tuned for the next one.